Good morning, New Vision Center. Isn't it exciting to be here? Are you excited? Are you excited? Yes, yes. Oh, I am excited. I am so excited about today because things are already shifting and moving. And I love it. I love when life shows up and things are just bubbling up to the surface where there before was a void. So I'm excited to be here. I'm Reverend Karen Lewis together with Reverend Leslie, who did a fabulous job singing that song, didn't she? Thank you. We are here today to be inspired, perhaps to hear something that makes a difference in your life. Those of you who were here last week, we had an unusual service last week where we were introduced to 5 new chants, and Reverend Leslie walked us so beautifully through a spiritual mind treatment, our form of affirmative prayer, and something shifted. Something shifted in me for sure, and something shifted in a lot of people who have reached out and said, embracing, living a prayer is so very different than learning those 5 steps. And so that is where the inspiration for today really comes from. We are going to all together come with hopefully a willingness to practice the presence. We so often talk about the presence. What does that really mean? We hear it named by so many different words. We hear it called God, first cause, intelligence, sweet spirit, the allness of life, love, joy. An infinite number of words. And yet, they are all just words that describe this presence that until we are willing to feel it with our entire being, they're just merely words. So I want to start off today with a question. Are you willing for the next, I had 2 hours today, right? We said 2 hours. Okay. So for the next 2 hours, no. For the next 20 minutes, are you willing to lay down anything that gets in the way of you to hear the message, to know that who you are, whether if you're here in the sanctuary, if you sit in the front row, in the back, if you hear this message on a Sunday morning, or any time in the future, that who you are is God made manifest. That is the primary message of this teaching. Who I am. Put your hand on your heart. Who I am is God made manifest. And so we are going to explore, what does that really mean? How does that feel? In a lot of different ways. Now, I love that we call ourselves radically inclusive. Have you heard that? Yeah, if you have come to the New Vision Center for any amount of time, you have heard this term, radically inclusive. And you might have asked yourself, what does that mean? What does that mean? For me, it not only means that we include all of the faith traditions. You see them here in our beautiful fabric, a representation of the different faith traditions of the world. And if you listen to our messages, you know that we bring in wisdom wherever we find it. We bring it. It might be old, ancient wisdom. It might be something from contemporaries. We want to welcome all the truth. And for someone who participates here in the New Vision Center, the invitation is really take what works for you. And what doesn't work, well, don't do it. You know? We had so many people who said, oh, I love the chanting. And there were a couple of people who said, chanting is really not working for me. Great. Don't chant. Yeah. Just close your eyes while that is taking place and know there will be something else that might work for you. I wanted to acknowledge our Jewish brothers and sisters who have just gone through the High Holy Days, the 10-day period of introspection, repentance, and that starts with Rosh Hashanah and completes with Yom Kippur. And I love that. I love that we are aware and celebrate what is taking place in the different traditions. And so today, we are going to stay with this idea of being in awe. That's what those 10 days are called. It's the beginning, and it is to be in the days of awe. In the days of awe. And so I want to start with asking yourself to have a look at your life. Take a moment. Where are you in awe? What is making itself known that reminds you of the truth that God and I are one? It might be a particular individual. It might be a furry friend. It might be a new job, a new song, a new book, a new something. Where are you in awe? It might be that you hear of a new spiritual practice, a new way of cultivating the presence that gives you that feeling of awe, of newness, of, oh, that's for me. I had one of those moments this week. I picked up this book by Hermann Hesse. I guess you pronounce him Hermann Hesse, maybe? Yeah? Yeah? And on the very first page, he introduces us to the Brahman's son, the individual known as Siddhartha, who will become the Buddha. And here's what he says. Already he knew how to pronounce Om silently, this word of words, to say it inwardly with the intake of breath, and when breathing out with all his soul, his brow radiating the glow of pure spirit. And I read that, and I thought, that is what I want to experience. And I'm going to invite all of us into this. We're going to take an in-breath, silently hearing Om. And then we're going to exhale with the intention to bring forth our love, radiating from the very center of our being, out into the sanctuary, out into the living room where you find yourself, out into the place where you are. And we're going to do that 3 times. And just breathe in Om. perhaps this becomes a practice for you. Perhaps this becomes a tool when life gets busy, when things happen that bring you into the now moment, into this place. As a community, you know, we have been looking at the spiritual hero's journey. And here we are in September, and we have covered quite a bit of the journey, have we not? Yes. And I think where I feel we are now is giving all that we have experienced, all that we have learned, the reverence that it deserves. As a community, we have learned this year to reveal the power of love more powerfully than ever before, in my estimation. This community has walked together this path. I invite you to look at your own personal life, and you might notice some things. You might notice that some things have fallen away. There has been transformation, has there? Is that true for you? Yes? I see shaking hand. Yes? And we might have known and come to learn that we are braver than we think. We are braver than we think as we have walked consciously through the challenges and not allowed them to pull us down. And I believe the reason why we were able to do that is because we have been engaged in this practicing of presence. We heard a lot of messages this year about how can we be fully in the here and now, allowing any prior pain, any prior wound, anything that has come before this moment to lose its tight grip on us, so that we can be open and feel the love that is present here, wherever here is. That we can be open to hear what is ours to hear. I am hoping that we have an inventor amongst us today, because I would love for someone to create a presence meter. You know, something, there may be a red light that goes woo, 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 when I'm in the now moment. Anybody? Let me show you how that could look. Reverend Leslie, would you come up here? Jeff, come on up here. We are busy, busy individuals, are we not? Yeah, Jeff here has 10 exams coming up. So it would be understandable if his presence wouldn't be here, but he would be thinking about that. Could be. And Reverend Leslie is always collaborating and creating some wonderful creative process, creative invention, endeavor. We would understand if she wouldn't be fully present here, right? So this is how it could look. And you have probably had these kinds of gatherings where you're with people and everybody is pretty much off doing their own thing while they're having a conversation with each other. Have you ever noticed that? Sometimes I'm like, hello, hello, I'm here. Not to Reverend Leslie, she never does that to me. So what could it be like when we take a moment and consciously bring our intention to this now moment, to recognize that all that is needed is right here? We might turn to one another and reach out. And there it is. Thank you. I know there's an inventor somewhere who's like, oh, I got it, I'm working on that. Because how wonderful it would be that when we meet in that place, when we are reminded that who we are and what is enough. I was mentioning the young Buddha earlier. Later in life, when he became the Buddha, he gave a wordless sermon. I'm contemplating it. One time, he was surrounded by his students, and he gave a sermon where he just gazed at a white flower. And a few minutes into that wordless sermon, one of his disciples broke out in a smile. He got it. Words are not necessary. We can allow anything to remind us of that formless, eternal being that we are. It can happen on a Sunday morning, yes, of course. It can also happen on a Friday afternoon in traffic. Flowers have this beautiful way of reminding us to be here, now. Rajneesh says it this way: look at flowers for no reason. It is simply unbelievable how happy flowers are. I think we can learn from flowers. And what we can learn is we can only be here now. It is a message that we hear in many different words, and the moment we allow it into our heart, it changes everything. It transforms our lives. And what's interesting, our lives might look the same from the outside, or they might look different. But it is the way we are experiencing it, the way we are relating to spirit, presence, what is. Eckhart Tolle says, the key to transformation is to make friends with this moment. What form it takes, it doesn't matter. Say yes to it, allow it, be with it. Oh, and how easy that is when the things are going well, isn't it? I'm like, oh, I accept this moment all the time. I feel the love, I feel connected, I feel supported. This comes in when things are not going so well, when we are struggling with a relationship, with a diagnosis, with the world, with those other people who are not living their life the way they should be living their lives. Flowers. Flowers can help us come back into this moment. Perhaps acknowledging the paradox of life can also be helpful. We're all familiar with paradoxes. The Microsoft and Carter College Dictionary says that a paradox is something absurd or contradictory, but in fact, it is true. So what appears to be contradictory really has a deep truth behind it. And so I thought we would, explore a couple. There is that paradox of spiritual growth. Any growth, really, but it's particularly apparent in spiritual growth. The moment when we have studied so much and we realize how little we really know. And the willingness to be in that moment. To not get pulled into appearing to always having the answers, of always knowing. Allowing ourselves to not know. I think this path that we all have chosen, this spiritual path, leads us again and again to moments where we realize how much more there is to know. The second one is that of spiritual enlightenment. It is interesting to notice that the more enlightened one becomes, the more closely they live with indwelling spirit, the more childlike they become. Have you ever noticed that? Not taking things quite so seriously, being willing to laugh, not being offended. I happen to have 3 little grandkids, and they teach it to me all the time. There's a paradox of knowing and mystery. If we are to know the living God, Spirit Almighty, we have to accept that there is mystery beyond this knowingness that we can't know. I so love when we do the acknowledgments of the 7 directions, and we always start in the east and acknowledge the newness. And in the south, we acknowledge that what is in full bloom in our lives. And then in the west, we acknowledge what is coming to completion. And then we turn to the north, the place of unformed mystery. So while we are on this path, on our individual life's journey, there is a mystery that we just can't know. And to be okay with that. And the last paradox I wanted to bring to our attention is the paradox of love. The more love we want to experience, the more love we have to give away. The master teacher Jesus understood this like no other. The more love we want, the more we have to give it away. And it is not always easy. It's not always easy. Henry Nouwen says, it seems easier to be God than to love God, to own life than to love life. So he speaks to this idea that it is easier to have an opinion about something than to be in it. But that's not what we are interested in, right? No. We want to be right in the middle of life when it's happening through us, as us. I'm going to complete with this beautiful slide and quote by Dr. Ernest Holmes, because it speaks to the allness of life to me. the power that does the actual doing, God, mind, infinite intelligence, is always right where you are. It is never limited, and within it resides infinite possibilities. There is a necessity on your part to recognize that there is such a power and to cleanse, and that all of its potential is available as you cleanse your thoughts and emotions of debris which may be blocking a greater experience of its good in and through you and your affairs. God, Spirit, love is everywhere present all of the time. We are invited to cleanse ourselves of any debris that doesn't allow us to know it fully. What are the spiritual tools that you have discovered for yourself to cleanse yourself of any debris, of any limiting thoughts? So that wherever you show up, without saying a word, people feel that they are in the presence of the divine Spirit. That, beloveds, is where we're heading. And that's where we are. I am so grateful you're on this journey with me. And so it is. And so now we do what we know anchors this truth. I invite all of the practitioners to please rise, the ministers who are present here, if you're watching us online. Let's take a stand. Let's take a moment and recognize the allness of life. Sweet Spirit, right now, right here. We're allowing the music to open our hearts. Regardless if we hear it or if we hear it just in our inner ear. We're finding that place of the Most High, the place where we know that we are one, that there's only one activity. Love, light, peace, harmony, joy. We call on one another because we truly are one. And so from this place of deep knowingness, I speak a word for this moment. How grateful I am for all the debris that has been left behind, for all the wounds that have been healed, for all the love that has been experienced, for all the clarity that has been gained, for all the joy that's making itself known. How grateful I am for this spaciousness, for Spirit to have its being in me, as me, through me. With every in-breath, I breathe in God. And with every out-breath, I share my experience of the divine. With every in-breath, I breathe in love. And with every out-breath, I share it with the world. And so how good it is to realize that all is truly well. All is truly, truly well. God is, I am, we are. And so I place this word into universal law, knowing it is complete, it is done. As together we anchor this truth and say, and so it is.